let's not let history repeat itself. I was totally unaware of the murder of Ahmaud Arbery until this past week when my YouTube feed was blowing up with gun rights content providers and Second Amendment supporters were posting their comments about this event. It's almost like I was living on a rock. I had no idea that this thing had happened. Part of that probably is because with the coronavirus and all the heat being placed in the mainstream media and others, it never got any air until last week when a video of the murder, because that's what it was, when a video of the murder surfaced and other events took place. Now, what I want to caution against is this is not the first time something like this has happened where a young black man, in this case boy, young man, was murdered in the South, and that murder was quickly covered up by local law enforcement. The first time in my history that I remember that was August 1955. That was the murder of Emmet Till. Emmet Till was a young black boy, 15 years old, from Chicago, visiting his family in Mississippi, a small town in Mississippi. He was murdered brutally on the charge of making a wolf whistle to a white woman who was a shopkeeper in that small town. And what they did to that little boy made worldwide history. And the local law enforcement tried to bury it, literally tried to bury him, but his mother intervened, lawsuits, and had the body sent to Chicago for an open casket funeral in the heat of August. I want you to imagine what that looked and smelled like. Thousands of people walked by this little boy's casket. That event triggered what was known as the beginning of the civil rights movement. Fast forward to February 2020, and Ahmaud Arbery is murdered for the charge of being a burglar from people who had no right to stop anyone and charge them with any crime. But they did. They chased him down. He tried to defend himself with the only things he had, which was his hands and feet. And then they shot him not once, but 3 times with a shotgun. I don't know if you're familiar with shotguns, but if it's a pump action, you have to do that 3 times. If it's a semi-automatic shotgun, not so much, you just keep pulling the trigger. Nevertheless, they shot this young boy 3 times. Local law enforcement tried to literally bury the story. You had people recusing themselves. The father, the senior of the 2 that did the murder, was a retired law enforcement from that location. I am absolutely certain that his friends, because he was 30 years on the job there, I am certain that his friends said, "We can't let them do this to Joe. It will destroy him, blah, blah, blah. He will lose his pension, blah, blah, blah." That's what happens in small towns in the South with cops who kill black people. Now, if it wasn't for the release of the video, which I have not seen, don't want to see it, don't need to see it. I know what happened on that street in broad daylight because it's happened before. Now, if it wasn't the fact that the video went viral and got the attention of the Georgia Attorney General, that young man his death would be the spark that caused the revival of a new civil rights movement. What would be different? And this is a caution to you Southern stars and bars, Confederate flag waving folk. This time, you need to be aware that that man with a gun next time is going to be a black man with a gun. And if some of you think that black people don't have guns, don't know how to use them, you have been living under a rock or not going to the range. Failure to bring these two to justice, that means put them in prison, will result in civil disobedience not only in that town, but around the country that will rival the Rodney King riots. Now, that's not a threat. I just happen to know that people have had enough of that kind of thing. There is a mindset. There is a mindset with a lot of folks, way too many in the South, that says they have a right to do that kind of thing to black men. Now, I'm here to tell you that those days are over, and there will be accountability. There will be accountability. You cannot keep in your mind the picture that black folks and black men are just those people. Folks that you can track down, folks that you can intimidate, because that's just not true. It is not true anymore. So my caution is you do not want history to repeat itself. The light is on this story. As a matter of fact, within 48 hours of the video surfacing, the two were arrested for murder and aggravated assault. And the arresting officer felt that it was okay to put his arm around the younger of the murderers to console him. Why? Because he was crying, because he killed a black man and got caught at it. So, let's not let history repeat itself. Because that man with a gun, this time, will be the black man with a gun. As always, thanks for watching. Carry on.